Hello and welcome to Into Your Life podcast. I'm Lenka and I'm joined here by my wonderful co-host Natalie.
Hi, we invite you to join our weekly conversations about finding more life in one's life.
Well, what does it actually mean?
We have discussions with guests about ways to live happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives, both personally and professionally.
That sounds great. Let's go.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode. As always, we're bringing you interesting, unusual guests to talk about anything and everything that has to do with our life and living lives to the fullest, finding more fulfillment in our lives. And it often means allowing us to find our path, get answers to our questions, to understand ourselves better and understand our journey better. And that's why I'm excited to have Tash Lancaster with us today, who is a tarot consultant. So we will be looking at the magical power of tarot, and we may explore how Tash actually got to doing this, helping entrepreneurs to recognize that they're on the right track or helping them find the right path for them, giving them answers to the questions or helping them figure out which questions to even ask. But without any further ado, Tash, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I'm really, really excited.
Me too. So I will start with a bit of a caveat to I have very little knowledge and idea of what tarot is or tarots are or how they work. Obviously, I know that you have some cards with some pictures on them and you read future from them. That's my understanding of tarot. And I'm coming to this with open mind to understand, we can go as far into the woo-woo world as we want to understand the magic. We can take it very pragmatically and rationally and explain how on a practical level you work with them, and we can be anywhere in between. But I wanted to put it out there for any listeners who may have accidentally clicked on this episode, not knowing what it is, and they hear tarot, they're like, oh gosh, we're going in there. What am I going to get? And I'm like, please stay, come in, join us. I'm open. We're curious. And I'm sure it's going to be a fascinating, interesting, insightful conversation. So, Tash, tell me about your journey. How did you discover tarot? How long have you been fascinated by tarot? Like, what is you and tarot relationship?
Um, I think I've been interested in tarot for a very long time, for years and years and years, but I've always been scared of them. I've always been scared of because in my head I thought it was this magical deck of cards that does something. And obviously the cinematography, the movies, oh my God, like the death card, all the scary cards, that really doesn't help. All that's rubbish, by the way. And I've been really scared to even go there until I can't remember, it was a few years back, and I had a shamanic reading. I had a shamanic session with a shaman. And she came with all these cards. She had tarot cards, she had oracles, and she had several decks, and she was just throwing cards, and she was like pulling all these meanings out of them. And I was like, whoa, how freaking cool is that? Um, and towards the end of the session, we just kind of started chatting away. And I said, look, oh my God, I would love to do tarot. I would love to learn. And she said, just go and get yourself a freaking deck from Amazon and start playing. There's nothing scary about it. And I did. That's literally what I did. I started playing. I got myself a deck. I got myself a book. The worst thing to do, by the way. If you're learning tarot, it's the worst thing to do to get a book. Like, don't get a book. um, and I've been playing with that for a little while until I got to a point. It was actually last April 2023. I remember, so it became my little ritual in the morning. I would throw three cards and then go into the book and see what it means, and it was very, very time consuming. And I got to about April, May last year when my daily cards became similar. So I was started getting the Tower card most days. And even then, as a beginner, I knew that Tower cards was scary. Like it was a big change coming. Like it's the kind of change where it's a freaking earthquake. It's like it burns shit to the ground. And I was like, and I knew something was coming and I knew it was business related. But what I didn't know is that in summer, my biggest client was going to give me notice. And they, it was literally like having the rug being pulled from under your feet. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So at the time I was a VA and I've had that client for many years, but I knew I didn't want to replace them. I didn't want to carry on in the VA world, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And as I was finishing working with them, this tarot class popped up, and I was like, I'm just going to take it for shits and giggles, as you do. And within 3 weeks, and I kid you not, within 3 weeks, I understood tarot like to the core. That it just like literally everything just came into place. I was like, oh my God, this is so much fun. And I started reading for anybody who would let me, friends, family. Like I was badgering people in my village. I was messaging people going, can I please read for you? I even went to my local fair, like a village fair, and I read there. It was really, really good fun. And then people started referring friends and family to me, and it just became business without me even trying. Like I had to quickly come up with a pricing system. I had to quickly come up with a booking system and link it to my Zoom account and all that stuff. And it just came to me. It just absolutely came to me. And you gave me permission to go into woo woo. I was could not work out why I learned tarot so quickly. Like this just literally came to me. And I was like, this what gives? Like why? You hear about tarot readers who have like 10 years of experience, 40 years of experience, and have this really deep understanding of cards and they're just like really there. And here I am, a new kid on the block, and it just suddenly came together. And then, so kind of this question's been pestering me for a while. And then I did, about 2 or 3 months ago, I did a past life regression with tarot. And I actually learned from that past life regression that in that specific past life, it was 1920s, I was a gypsy. So I lived in a big gypsy community. And I was a tarot reader and I was a witch. I saw cards, I saw decks of cards, I saw the what is it called? The crystal ball. Like being a witch in that life was actually your Tuesday. Like that wasn't the thing that wasn't safe. Like that was expected. That was my job. So of course, when I started working with tarot, it just came back to me. It didn't feel like I was learning. It felt like I was remembering. So there you go. I'm not a hereditary witch, but I'm a soul witch. I'm reincarnated tarot reader, and that's why it it just came to me. It's just like I remembered. I just remembered how to do it. It's insane. I can't explain it.
And not everything needs to be explained. For those who want explanation, maybe they can go and find it. For others, they just will take it as it is. And that's why we're here. We're not here to, question or judge or cast edit out. We're just taking it like that. And it sounds very plausible to me. Specifically, yes, back in the day, we know that tarot cards readers were very common, especially in gypsy communities. They were part of the community. They were the, wise woman, shaman of that community. So why not? It's absolutely possible. But I would like to go back to where you started, because the one thing you just so casually started with is like, oh yeah, I had this shamanic reading book. I'm like, how does one get themselves into like, oh, I want to have a shamanic reading. I want to have it with this shaman and I want to have it because of that. Could we just start from the start?
Yeah. Okay, so books. In 2020, somebody recommended in the lockdown, as you do, we read so much in lockdown, let's be honest, because we were so bored. Somebody recommended me this book called Shaman in Stilettos. And I have always been pulled to shamanism. Like, I don't know why. I don't know what it is about shamanism. But it's just a variation of witchcraft, I guess, and they just do things slightly differently. And I've just always been really interested. And this book was about a London girl who had a very London career and was running around London in stilettos, a bit Carrie Bradshaw, Sex and the City vibe. And she goes on this journey to, I think, South America. And she meets this really hot shaman. And she learns basically shamanism from him. And she goes on this massive journey. And it's a little bit like Eat, Pray, Love kind of story. It's written in the kind of Eat, Pray, Love. It's like her journey to self-discovery, and then she comes back eventually to London and she sets up a school, wearing stilettos but being a shaman in stilettos. Brilliant. And that book kind of like opened up a little bit of a door for me, and I was like, oh my god, this is really fascinating. So I went on a massive I don't know if it ever happens to you, but I have been over the probably since about 2019, I've been on these massive they're not binges, but it's like following breadcrumbs. It's like you pick up a book and you read about a thing, and then you're like, I want to know more about this thing, and you start obsessively following breadcrumbs, and you don't know why. You just follow your gut instinct. And I started reading about feminine energy. I started reading about menstrual cycle, which became a whole different thing. I started reading about witchcraft, the shamanism, and everything. And I didn't know anything about shamanism apart from what I read in the books. And then my friend had a reading with a local shaman who's local to me, who lives like 6 miles down the road from me. And as soon as she said that she's a shaman, I was like, I don't know what she does. I don't know what it is. I just want her. And she came to my house. She brought all this gear. She brought a drum. Oh my God, the shamanic drum. So amazing. She had like a crow wing, and she looked the part as well. And she did a womb healing for me. It was like a 2-hour session. And it had lots of parts to it. There was like, she sent me on this quest. So it's like a guided meditation. And you go into not underworld, lower world, and you go and see stuff. It's fascinating. And I feel like having had those sessions and having had that relationship with her, I've ticked my box with shamanism. And I think it's almost like I was meant to meet her, so to have that conversation about tarot, so that the tarot chapter of my life could start. And as the tarot chapter of my life started, and I couldn't work out, I was just reading tarot. And as I was reading tarot for people, I had more and more business people coming into my world. And I suddenly realized that I have this knack of reading tarot for business. Like I can pull together, I can talk about offers and pricing and, imposter syndrome and, launches and all that kind of stuff, and a burnout, because I live in this world and I really love running business. I love being in business. And I started reading for anybody from a VA to a consultant to big CEOs and MDs who come to me regular and going, right, okay, what do I need to know for this month? And it became a thing. So I became a tarot consultant for specializing in business. And tarot, it's interesting because I also belong to Tarot Academy, and I hang out with a lot of people. And it's interesting how every tarot reader has their own little speciality. Like some tarot readers love reading about love, relationships, like tall, dark, and handsome, and all that kind of stuff. Not my bag. Other tarot readers read more about, around family or around spirituality. Not so much my bag either. I've never actually met another tarot business consultant who specializes in business. And I'm sure they exist. I've just not met another one. But this is another thing I've learned. Every tarot reader, every tarot, whatever the practitioner, would have a speciality, even though they might not necessarily advertise it as such. So yeah.
It makes sense. It comes through the personal experiences, personal interests, personal inclinations, the circumstances, and it makes total sense to then have little niches and focus on whatever you're interested in or whatever you're passionate about or whatever you have this gift, and what is your zone of genius. And if you've always loved running a business, obviously as a VA, you've experienced a variety of business paths and tasks and like questions and challenges that you have the understanding and you can help people with that. So I think it's pretty cool. I will have one more maybe dumb question for a layman like myself.
Well,
and then we'll see what Natalie comes up with. But you mentioned that when you had this shamanic reading, that there were, tarot cards and oracle cards. What's the difference?
Tarot cards is a deck of cards, basically, that originated from medieval Italy, so 1400s Italy we're talking about. It started its life as a card game. So tarot is based on playing cards. So if you don't know playing cards, so you have the four suits and you go from ace to the king. And it was a card game basically for nobility. And then tarot deck has two parts. You have minor arcana, you have major arcana. Minor arcana is that thing that has four suits and goes from ace to king. So that's minor arcana. Major arcana joined in later. And there is this myth, you might have heard at some point, that tarot cards came from ancient Egypt and it's based on the Book of the Dead, I think it's called. There might be an element of truth, but there is no evidence. All evidence points out to the fact that it was created as a card game, and that's the truth. That's what we know from history. The major arcana has the even less interesting story. The major arcana joined the club later, and it originated from Italian, what are they called? Festivals, not festivals. I think they are festivals.
Carnivals.
Carnivals, thank you, carnivals. When you have those massive floats. And back then they would have massive floats that said the lovers, death, whatever other ones. And those elements actually joined the deck of cards later on. And I think it actually wasn't until, okay, don't quote me here, I think it was either 18th century or even 19th century, the deck was completed and it started being used for the purpose of divination. So it became a thing. And you actually can play games. You can actually use tarot as a gaming tool. You can just take major arcana out and just use the minor arcana because it's the same as playing cards. But they just give you the depth and they give you this massive vibrancy. And that's the tarot. That's the tarot deck. The oracle cards is something slightly different. Oracle cards have infinite possibilities. Like they are created every day. A new oracle deck is created. it's created by people who have their own outlook on life, their own outlook on spirituality, and it's almost like they're creating their own system of, I suppose, divination. Because every oracle card, every oracle deck is different. That oracle deck has no tarot is set, like that was created and that is set. That there's not, you have shitload of variations on tarot in terms of graphics, but the structure is set. With oracle cards, anybody can go and create a deck of oracle cards or angel cards, whatever you want to call them. I use those words interchangeably. And it's just what you like. You like colors, you like the vibe of that person. I know Rebecca Campbell, if you know of her, I think she's got 4 or 6 decks of cards that she's produced, and they kind of in the same vibe. I actually don't have a single deck by Rebecca Campbell. Oh, I love her, but the kind of very pinky, floaty stuff, it's just not my vibe. I'm more of a witch. Like I've got the deck I've got, for example, is called the Witch, and it's kind of darker, more kind of embodiment, more grounded, witchcrafty stuff rather than pinky floaty thing that Rebecca came up with. And that's kind of the difference between tarot and oracles.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
So unlike Lenka, I've been on this journey a while. I was actually introduced to the tarot years ago by a friend, and she often used to do readings for me, and she was a Wicca and really followed that path. And I vaguely remember the original tarot deck, like you said, is quite scary, death and all these really dark pictures and everything else. From somebody from my childhood used to have them, and my mother, she would just like, oh no, you don't play with that, don't. So it sort of put me off. And then I met my friend who introduced me to tarot and crystals and started me on my spiritual journey. Or she pointed me in the direction. It didn't mean I went on that road. It just meant it was like, okay, there's the path, seen it, been there, done that, and went totally the opposite direction, as I do when I'm pointed out and given advice. But the thing is the tarot has always fascinated me, and I've got myself an Egyptian tarot, which is quite intense. I find it personally quite intense, and I took it with me to Egypt, and it was just an amazing thing to have with me. But I'm going to put my hand up here, and here's a confession: is I do prefer the oracle cards than the tarot cards, because I think I find I connect with them easier, except for the pinky ones. You do get some that are not so pinky. I'm not saying to the pinky ones, but I do, I have quite a variety, and ancient and earth warriors and trees and crystals, and you get such a lovely variety, and depending on mood, which ones I will read, which ones I'll take out. So it's really fascinating to hear how you are gone down the oracle, the tarot journey, and how you've really connected with that. And I've heard as well that tarot readers have like you said, a speciality. Is it love, relationships, family, or in your case, business? But as Lenka said, I think it's great because business is your background. Having run your own business as a VA and having a foot in that business world, to then connect your tarot reading with business. It sounds really as part of your journey. Like you said, you followed the breadcrumbs, and this is where you've landed up. So it's really nice to hear how you've come to tarot, because most people in my life who I've met it's almost been an instinct. They've almost born with knowing tarot and the spiritual world, and whether they label themselves a Wicca or a witch or spiritual or shaman, it's like it's been part of them for so long. So it's really nice to have somebody who, a little bit like me, who's not necessarily come from that, but we followed the breadcrumbs to see where it takes us. And you've been better than I have, because you actually followed the breadcrumbs. I'm like, oh yeah, there's the breadcrumbs, but I'm going that way. But that's just me. Why make life easy if you can make it complicated?
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating to hear how you finding your journey. And I think woo-woo is now becoming more acceptable in business. I mean, like you said, CEOs and solopreneurs coming to you and asking for guidance, for help, is these cards have been around for centuries. Divination has been around for centuries. The ancient Egyptians did their own, looked at the stars, you did the bones, you went to witch doctors. You go back in history, it's there, whether you're shaking the bones or the tea leaves or cards or whatever it is. I can't think of anything else.
Runes.
Sorry, runes. Yes. Oh yeah, I like them as well. But but the thing is, it's been there in our past. I mean, what generals wouldn't go to war unless the stars were in the right alignment and the planets were in the right place. And we've lost that. We've lost that connection to Earth, or our spiritual side, or the woo-woo, or the stars or planets, whichever way you want to look at it. We've really lost that connection. So I love how you've brought that back. You're bringing it back in, what's my month going to be like? Or do I need to avoid something? Or can you give me some guidance? I mean, quite often as business owners, it's like, oh my God, what's my next step? What do I do? What do I price? Do I keep this client? Don't I keep this client? This client is stressing me, but I need the money. What do I do? We get these questions, and we're supposed to sit here on our own with our perspective and our perceptions, and we meant to make decisions where sometimes just having that other person draw out a card and say, well, this is what the card said, it can give you a different perspective. You don't have to follow it, but it just gives you a different idea. And like you said, the death card isn't about death necessarily. It's not so scary. So can you give a few, with all that ramblings that I've gone on, can you give a few sort of ways that you can help? So our listeners is, the majority of them are business owners, and they're not necessarily on the woo-woo path. It's not something that they would like or have gone down. But let's give them a breadcrumb. It's up to them whether they take the breadcrumb or not. Is how does reading a tarot, how would that help? Why would they want to have a reading? So can you just go a little bit into that?
Yes. It kind of made me think of the first person that I did a business reading for. Somebody approached me from LinkedIn, so I only hang out on LinkedIn at the moment. And somebody who I've known for years, it's a guy, approached me. Now, you know how you say he was the last person I expected to hear from? Like, if there was a list of people and he was the last person, he was not even on the freaking list. Like, he was off the list. And he approached me and he's like, oh, can I have a reading? And I read for him. And like, as I was reading, he was like, I'm getting goosebumps because that thing you just said happened 2 hours ago. And I could that thing. And then he contacted me again literally 3 weeks later and said, I need another reading because everything you just predicted came true. And the thing about tarot, actually about any divination, about any form of divination, is, I'm going to say something really controversial because there are different opinions about it, but this is something that I believe in. Everything is predestined. Everything. And everything that when you reincarnate into this life, into this body, your soul chose to live this life. You had a choice, had several options, and you decided to live this specific life. You chose the parents, the siblings or no siblings, the spouse, children or no children. Your soul chose this life, and everything. It's like it's like buying a game. It's like buying a program. Everything is pre-programmed and everything is living itself out. And your soul knows it. In fact, your soul knows, you know this, your soul knows this. Your soul knows when you're going to die. And that's the truth. Consciously, we don't know this, but your soul knows. Like you hear the stories of people who, I remember reading the book about Coco Chanel as she was dying, and she said, oh my God, is this what it feels like? As you go, as you're about to die, I've read this so many times, people go, I know it's my time. Like you just know, your soul knows, and nobody can explain how. So everything is predestined, including the cards that you're going to get at any point. If you come for a tarot reading, your soul decided many, many years ago, before you were born, that at that point you're gonna reach this point and you're gonna come and have a reading. You're gonna come and have a we're gonna look at the cards. The way tarot works, and I'm gonna try to explain this in a non-woo-woo way, it's a little bit like radio wave. Like you get in a car and you look for the radio, for specific radio. So I get in the car and I look for, say, Heart Extra. And when I click the button for Heart Extra, or whatever, however you look for it, Heart Extra comes up. My partner likes BBC something. Why? Don't know. But we always fight for I get in the car and it's like, oh my God, he's been listening to some crap again. So we are constantly between these two different stations. When you come for a reading, say you are Heart Extra. So say your vibe, your wave is radio wave is Heart Extra. What happens is, because your soul knows what's going to happen, like you consciously don't know, but your soul knows what's going to happen in the future. The card's energy calibrates into your wavelength, into your vibe. So when you arrive into a reading with me, I already throw the cards. So when my clients arrive, I already throw the cards about half an hour before, and I make some notes for them. So I kind of already start the reading so they can jump in straight away. So there's no faffing around too much. And I can see, before the client even arrives, I can already see what's happening in their life. I can sense their vibe. I'm already tuned into their energy, and I can sense their vibe. And that's why it becomes tarot so insanely accurate, because it's tuned into you. It's completely tuned into your energy, and it can show you the future. It can show you what the future looks like based on the decisions you're going to be making now. There's usually one or two cards in the present. So I throw every tarot card, every tarot reader is different. They use different spreads. The spread that I use is so free-flowing. Like, I hate structure that comes with what's it called, Celtic Cross, for example. I just can't do it just does my head in, because it has every meaning. Every card has a meaning in a certain position, and I just can't deal with that. Does my head in. The spread that I do is very free-flowing, and there's usually one or two cards in the present that has an action attached to them. So you need to do this thing in order to get to your future. This is your we're going to call it obstacle here. This is the thing to overcome. This is the thing to work through in order to go into your future. And of course, as you go through this, as you overcome your obstacle and you go into your future, the future comes, the prediction comes true. And that's how it works. It's literally, tarot deck is linked into your energy, and it's the tarot reader who is interpreting that particular deck, that particular spread. But it's more than that. So you have the client, you have the deck, and you have the third one. It's almost like a triquetra. You have the tarot reader who is interpreting those cards for this particular alignment for the client cards. and they're able to pull this whole thing together. Does that make sense, or is it a bit more confusing now?
No, it does make sense. It can be quite difficult to almost translate what tarot is, especially for somebody who doesn't necessarily know or understand what tarot is. It's translating a different language in a way. And you said that you almost started with, get a deck off Amazon and a book. Okay, don't get the book, just get the deck. So the thing is, if somebody was wanting to, thinking this sounds interesting, I want to start playing around, I want to start understanding, would you recommend the advice that you were given is just get it, get your own deck and just play and have fun with it? Why wouldn't you get the book? I quite like the book. I find the book really helpful. So it'd be interesting to know why you would maybe recommend not getting the book.
Okay, so the book that I had, and I didn't know anything about tarot at the time at all. The book that I had, okay, so first of all, there's 78 cards in the deck. A lot of the books are written by writers, authors who are not active readers. There's a shitload of theory there. And when I first started reading, I read cards. So there's two ways you can read. You can use them, I think it's called direct or reversed. So when the card is upside down. I used to do that when I first started, the biggest mistake ever, because first of all, you have 78 cards, and then suddenly you have to read another 78 meanings, so it just makes it 156. Like, there's no need for that. 78 cards, that is a lot of cards. That is a lot of cards to learn. First of all, each of those cards is different. It has a slightly different meaning. You don't need to read cards reversed, because that meaning that you're looking for, you can find from a straight, I don't know what it's called, straight or direct reading. So first of all, I don't read reversed. That's just like extra work you don't need. Second of all, there is actually a funny we're having this conversation, because as we're talking, I'm actually putting together a free masterclass on how to read tarot from scratch. Like, you don't have to have any experience. Because I think of tarot as a hero's journey. I think of the deck, of both decks, so both parts of the deck, so major arcana, minor arcana. It's a hero's journey. And when you understand what the hero's journey is, when you understand each step on that journey, that is basically your reading. It's not complicated. Books make it really, really complicated. It's insanely complicated. If you are really interested in tarot, let's put it this way: every single book I have on tarot, I'm not really learning anything from the book. The book that helped me more. So the books that I read was, I think it was Kitchen Table Tarot and The Wild Card. Those two books I have, and I do refer to Wild Card sometimes, but I only go there if I want to understand a little bit of a deeper meaning and slightly different angle. To learn from scratch, I would say my advice, honest advice to God, would be look up Richard Knight. He is a tarot. I'm in his academy, so I learned from him, and the way he explains cards is super, super easy, like foolproof. And you can actually walk away and learn card and read cards straight away. And I think it's like 50 quid for a course and it's a masterclass that lasts over 7 weeks. And I would just that would literally be my advice. I'm actually putting together a masterclass that is a free masterclass. It's kind of like It's a spin on you know, like people do 5-day challenges. It's that kind of spin where I will be teaching you how to read tarot from scratch, but also read it for business straight away. So if you're a business owner and you just want to add a little bit of woo-woo into your practice, if you have all the crystals, you have all the books about crystals, you have all the crystals, and you have smudge sticks, and you have incense sticks, and all of it, but you just want to add a little bit more to your practice, this is what I will be teaching, and it's going to be coming up sometime in June. I'm still finalizing all those details, but I know exactly what I want to do, because so many clients who come to me, they're usually women, usually in business, who are into woo-woo, who have their own practices, and they love tarot, and they throw cards most of the time for themselves most days, and it's just giving them that extra help to just like make it really, really easy, make it really, really clear what each card means. So just to give you a quick example, for example, I don't necessarily read suits. I read numbers. I read numbers first, suits second. And that's how it makes it really, really easy. And that's what I'm going to be teaching, how to pull it all together and to make it really, really easy. Because books, I think books are actually, the market is flooded with books, and they make it even more confusing, because you think you're learning and you're getting even more and more confused every time. And I know that after 6 or 7 months of going by the book, I didn't get any closer to understanding anything at all, because you keep forgetting.
So I just want to clarify for our readers, for our listeners, because we've been talking about books, for our listeners, is when you say books, is this the books on tarot, or is this the book that comes with the tarot card set that they would buy? So are we talking about both books?
Yeah. The standard book that comes with every deck, so when I first rocked up on the class with Richard Knight, he actually unpacked a fresh deck, and he threw away the book, and it created a lot of controversy. But actually, now, having been through the process and having been doing the readings myself, I understand just how confusing that even that copy can be, because that copy can be so esoteric. It can have such a woo-woo lingo that if you're coming from it as a complete beginner, you go, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what does that even mean? So sadly, I agree. I actually think books make it even more confusing. The Kitchen Table Tarot, it's a good book, but she reads them in reverse as well. So if you take up the reverse, you actually might be getting somewhere. So you might be a bit easier. But again, like everybody, if you look at all the queens, for example, all the queens in all the suits, when I see a queen, for example, so for me, queen always means patience. If you pulled, say, Queen of Swords, you go into Google it, you're going to have pages and pages meanings on the queen, and you go, what does that even mean? Like, what? I don't know which one. I don't know which one is relevant here. But actually, if you have one word and like one general meaning, you're okay. You can actually read. You can pull a spread together. And you can read it quite easily if you just have one vibe attached to queen, and the suits kind of come secondary to this. So there's a much easier process than that. You look at archetype first, and then you look at the suits later.
So the tarot reading is almost a intuition on what the cards are bringing, because if you don't have the book, then you're needing to sort of intuitive read the cards. But I also know that some of the cards, if you actually look at the card as well, if you look at what the pictures are, what's being represented, the colors that are on the card, are there flags, aren't there flags? Because even if you have different tarot cards, like different, you know, the original set, or in my case, the ancient Egyptian, you will still have similar pictures that come up, and it's actually looking at the card itself and seeing what is on that card to help with the intuitive reading of that card. Am I sort of right?
Yes. Intuitive reading. Okay, so I know readers who read by the pictures and they love it. I don't read by the pictures. I do sometimes to make a point on something, but I don't largely read by the readings. If you take okay, so you need to have a basic understanding of the cards. You need to have a basic understanding of what each number or each archetype means. And they usually just mean one thing, and with a variation on a suit. If you approach the deck, unless you are like a super intuitive, I don't know, you can give it a go. I guess if you're reading for yourself, I'm just thinking about professionals, actually. I'm actually thinking about tarot readers. If you're reading for yourself and you're reading by the pictures, by the images, and it feels good, it feels right, absolutely go for it. I'm thinking here about tarot readers who are actually reading for other people, because you can get completely carried away into like making up a story. But then again, everything is predestined, isn't it? As I'm saying this out loud, I'm thinking everything is predestined. And if you're meant to pick up that card and come up with that whole story for yourself, then that is meant to be. Like, that's what you decided. That's what, you know, I remember I've got a friend who's a witch. She's been a witch for 40 years. She's a generational witch, and she always reads tarot by the images, and that's what she goes with. And she always comes up with really accurate readings. I find it difficult to read by images. You almost have to say it out loud. The way I read it is different. It's a little bit more pragmatic, a little bit more logical. It's like you have logic first. It's like this. I have logic first, and then I plug in my intuition. So sometimes I throw cards, and like Empress, for example, sometimes Empress means what it means for me, like growth, nurture, that kind of vibe. Sometimes Empress means, but you intuitively know this. Sometimes I know that a woman is coming into my life. And I literally had that a couple of weeks ago when I threw Empress for the day, and I intuitively knew that it wasn't the Empress meaning, it was the woman. And later on that day, a woman approached me and said, "I'm ready for a reading, where's a book?" So yeah, there is an element of intuition, absolutely, but yeah, logic. That's how I work anyway.
I love that there is a balance of, the rationality and then tapping into our innate wisdom, but also exploring, what else is there in the ancient wisdom and the cultural and societal and whatever other wisdom we feel like we have access to. We had talks about, Akashic records and all sorts of wisdom that is available to all sorts of creatures on this planet. And I love how you kind of break it down and allow people the permission to, yes, you can get a book, you can read it, you need to learn some basics, but also just go with the flow and figure out, because ultimately whatever you do is what is meant to happen, because as you say, and I think it doesn't matter whether people believe or not, if everything is predestined or not. It just gives us a bit more agency of like, no, I'm making a decision, like it's me deciding and I made it happen. But ultimately, to me,
which was predestined,
this reading thing, it's you find whatever answers you need in there. And I think that's what then the helping businesses really makes sense to me, and why I wanted you to have a chat with us. Because if we would talk tarot just for love and relationships and family, it might not be for everyone. Not everyone wants relationship advice like this. But when we open it and we're like, well, for anyone who is in this world and has some questions, and specifically if you have a business, if you have a career, if you have any professional, moments, that having an advisor, having a guidance, and having someone who helps you understand yourself, because sometimes in businesses we don't even understand ourselves properly. Like, we have this gut feeling, or we don't understand what to do. We stand at a crossroads, and allowing people with readings with you, or with then your course in education, to get answers, I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think there is a lot of room for tarot in business. There is this massive awakening. I think there's two parts happening here. There's this massive wave of awakening happening across the globe, and a lot of people are really waking up. And I see this a lot with women, especially. We are definitely waking up, but there is also this extreme where it becomes really popular and really fashionable, and it's like becomes all this esoteric language, really esoteric lingo. And I see this a lot with some of my friends. They have the most elaborate selections of crystals, and it makes me laugh, because when I got onto crystals, for example, I just did not want to buy crystals for the hell of it. Like, it's so easy to get carried away. But I got like a handful of crystals that were really, really relevant. But like, I've got a friend who has lots of crystals, and she charges them in the full moon, and it's all beautiful. But then like, what do you do with it? What's happening next? Like, what else do you do with crystals, for example? And there's this whole, people have lots of decks of cards and lots of oracle cards and crystals and incense and all these things, and it becomes like almost a compulsion, but you don't quite know what to do next, like where to pull it next. And I think in business, it's there is a lot of women out there. When I say women, I don't mean just women. I mean business owners. It's just that I mostly have women who are my clients. A lot of people who are waking up to this, to spirituality. They're having this major Kundalini awakening, or just spiritual awakening, and they're trying to plug it into their business. They're trying to run their business based on that, and actually. There is a way to do this. Like, there is a way to have a spiritual based business. Like, you can have a very, very pragmatic business. You can be an accountant, you can be a lawyer, you can be, you can have a very earthy business, but you can run it in a very aligned way, if that makes sense. You can actually, because it's you're the business owner. And if you are waking up as a witch, you can run it as a witch. And I actually read recently for somebody who said to me, I do this, and this in business. I portray it like that to my clients. Well, in fact, I do this, and this to them. They don't know it's happening. It's happening in the background. They're having like an additional bonus that I don't advertise, but that's the ultimate outcome they're getting. On the surface, they're getting a very pragmatic outcome, but actually it's a lot deeper than that. And that's one hell of a witch.
I think it's you mentioned it's this bringing the woo-woo in, and I think this is something that is becoming more acceptable. Is yes, we can be spiritual and business owners. Yes, we can do card readings or have incense burning or whatever it is that helps us to connect with the spiritual side. It's becoming much more acceptable, and not almost like be ashamed of it or keep it secret or keep it quiet, because you can't have a business head on while you also have a spiritual head on. And it's like, well, who says? So it's really great that it's starting to become more acceptable. I think people are now coming out of their woo-woo closet that they've been hiding in. And one of the things that I'm getting from you is very much that whether you're reading oracle cards or having the crystals or tarot cards, it's about finding your way of doing it, your connection. Because as you said, there's so many readers out there, but they all do something different. They all read differently, whether they read the upside down or not upside down, or the numbers or the suits or the whatever it is. It's finding their own connection. So, is just connect with it in your own way and not how you should be doing it. And there's that shoulding that we often talk about. It's find your connection, because it's your intuition that's at the end of the day reading the cards, whether it's for yourself or somebody else. And this is what I'm getting from you is almost that permission to our listeners is read the books if you want to learn about it, but then just put them aside. I don't like throwing away books. Put them aside and find your own way of reading and seeing what works. So on that note, we always love to get more from our clients, from our guests. We like to give them a space to answer or mention something that we haven't asked. Or do you have like a tip or a bit of advice or a gold nugget that it really needs to come out? Now's the space to just share whatever it is that you feel needs to come out.
Interestingly, the first thing that my intuition is talking about is the permission. Tarot, I came from a I have a very strange history. I came from a very, very, very Christian background, like a Baptist background, where I was brought up believing in that tarot's evil. Anything that is not aligned with Bible is wrong and evil, basically. And it took me a very long way to come out of that space. And when I did, it felt like my whole life I lived in a box that called church and Christianity. And I'm not knocking Christianity in any shape or form here. It was a very happy box, I had a really happy childhood and adolescence. But when I came out of that box, I realized there's a whole freaking stadium of other boxes, and you can play with all of them. Like, they're completely interchangeable. It's like a buffet. There's shamanism, there's witchcraft, there are other religions, there's mythology, there's all these things, tarot cards, there's all this stuff, mediumship, all this stuff that is freaking amazing. And I was like, oh my God, I can play with all of that. But coming out of that box was really scary. It took some courage. It took some ovaries. I'm not going to lie, girls. It did take some serious ovaries to do that. And if you are in that space when you may have heard about something and you're like, yeah, but it's scary, but you're really indescribably pulled towards that thing. It's like, I really want to play with it. I really want to go. I'm so curious. Go. Here's your permission. Go and play with that thing, whether it's deck of cards, whether it's oracle cards, whether it's mediumship, whether it's something else. And especially if you come from a very religious background, that you were told, it was drilled into you from early childhood that it's wrong, it's not good. Like, who says? There's honestly, it's like a buffet. I feel like I'm in front of this big buffet, and I'm playing with so many things at the moment. Like, I'm going into crystals. Like, tomorrow's new moon and I'm doing crystal grid for the first time. Oh my God, girls, crystal grid. I'm so excited about that. I am learning remote viewing. I am learning automatic writing. Like, all this stuff is freaking fascinating. And it's like, it's all of it. It's there. It's there to try. So if you need a permission, if you need that nod, here it is. Go and give it a go. Whatever it is that you're pulled to, go and give it a go. Because seriously, if it's tickling you, it's tickling you for a reason. It's not there by accident. So go and play with it.
I love it. It's really kind of a permission to go follow the breadcrumbs, or as I say, go into the rabbit hole of whatever you feel inspired or pulled towards. Because yes, we will find the breadcrumbs in this rabbit hole. We will find this way of, there's something telling us, be it the coincidence of 5 people mentioning the same thing in a period of time, or something popping in our mind, or something just being appealing to us. I love it. So thank you so much for this permission.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And it is, the universe is a huge place, and there's so much. So yes, I'm going to follow with what Lenka said, is thank you for the permission, because sometimes it is just being given permission. And I love how you describe it as a buffet of just so much. And yes, it's life, or the universe has got very narrow, but it's not. It's a huge place. So go and look, and if it tickles your fancy, follow it. Follow the breadcrumbs, because you don't know where it's going to lead, and you can't assume it's going to lead somewhere just by your first breadcrumb. So do follow it. I love that advice. It's brilliant advice. So thank you for that. So if one of our listeners is listening to this and like, I have got to get into this woman's circle, I've got to talk to her, I got to find her, I want a reading, I'm interested in this masterclass, where can people find you?
At the moment, I am on LinkedIn, but I also have a Facebook page. I don't have a website yet. So you have my LinkedIn link, and I will give you the Facebook link as well. And I will be hosting this mastermind in June at some point. I'm still finalizing dates. So, you can book a reading with me. If you go through my LinkedIn page, there is a book an appointment button, and it just takes you straight into my diary. It takes payment. It does the whole calendar thing and the Zoom, so it's very snazzy and very straightforward. So you can just come and book a reading with me.
We will have all the links in the description, and if by the time this goes live that your masterclass, you got a link for that, we will add that link for the masterclass, because I think that will be something people will want to sign up on. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with us today. I love your enthusiasm. We can see that you really love this path that you've found yourself going down, and this is what we love about having guests on our podcast, is because it's what brings more life in their life, and hopefully it will inspire a listener to think, oh, let me follow that breadcrumb, because I hadn't thought about that before, or whatever it is. And this is what it's about. And we can really see the enthusiasm and the love that you have for this path that you on, and it's great. And your crystal grid sounds really exciting. Never heard of it, so it's something to find out about. There's another breadcrumb for listeners and myself. But thank you so much for sharing with us today your knowledge, your wisdom, your what you have learned over the last few years with tarot, and your energy, of course. And for our listeners, what have you got from today? Has this been more woo-woo than you were expecting, or is this is not enough woo-woo, we want more woo-woo? Are you inspired to look at tarot, or are you inspired to go down the oracle route? Whichever way, we would love to know what your thoughts are on from today, or your thoughts on different cards. Do you like the pink cards, the more girly cards, or Do you like the more witchy card? What is it that inspires you or it tickles your fancy? As Tasha said, we'd love to know what you think, and would you like us to go even more into the woo-woo? Because I think it's a really exciting way. And have you been brave enough to bring woo-woo into your business? So share with us your thoughts, what you think, what inspires you, any stories that you can share. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
If you enjoyed listening to our conversation, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe. We would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and write a short review.